Some places announce themselves in color, others in sound. But Chile begins with contrast, with silence and fire, ice and salt, peaks that scrape the heavens and valleys that fall into silence. It is a country not drawn in straight lines, but carved by time and tension, stretched like a long breath between the Atacama and Antarctica. To see Chile is to feel the world unfold vertically, from the driest desert on earth to fjords that whisper in tongues older than language. In the beginning, you don't hear the country, you feel it. You feel it in the pressure of altitude as you stand in the shadow of the Andes, watching condors drift like fragments of forgotten stories. You feel it in the way light bends across the Salar de Atacama, not bouncing, but breaking, as if refracted through ancient silence. You feel it in the cold wind that races across the high plateaus, where flamingos stand in mineral lakes, still as statues, pink against the bones of salt and dust. This is A Narrated Discovery, a cinematic journey through the soul of a country. One voice, one rhythm, one path into the quiet spaces where Chile reveals itself, not with spectacle, but with stillness. Let us take you from north to south, not just through places, but through moments, through breath. The first of those moments lives in the north, in the Atacama Desert, where the sky is so clear it feels less like an atmosphere and more like a window. Astronomers come here to listen to the stars, but the land listens too, to ancient winds, to the deep sigh of cracked earth, to the shifting silence of dunes that have never heard rain. Valleys named for the moon and death bear no cruelty, only beauty too quiet to shout. Even movement feels sacred. A lone vicuña crossing an empty plain, a gust of wind stirring fine sand into ghost-like spirals, the crunch of footsteps where no footsteps should be. The air tastes of minerals and sun. The shadows move differently here, slower, longer, almost thoughtful. And when night falls, it is not dark. The desert becomes a bowl of stars, infinite, unreachable, yet somehow intimate. You don't look at them, you fall into them. As dawn breaks across the Atacama, the land blushes, first in amber, then rose, then gold. Valleys of salt glow like frozen waves. Volcanoes stand at the horizon, their peaks brushed with snow, their slopes casting shadows that stretch for miles. Everything is still. Even time seems hesitant to move. Farther south, the desert surrenders to green. Life, once hiding, begins to show its face. In cacti blooming under impossible skies, in tiny villages built from sun-dried earth, in the slow rhythm of footsteps on dusty roads. You pass by adobe walls stained with generations of heat, each crack a signature of survival. Laundry flaps in the wind like prayer flags. A dog dozes in the shade. A radio hums somewhere behind a curtain. And then, a sudden burst of color. The oasis town of San Pedro de Atacama appears like a mirage made real. Here, travelers whisper in many tongues. Locals sell woven ponchos dyed in the language of mountains. Llamas blink in the sunlight as if unimpressed by human curiosity. Everything moves slower, as if the desert itself dictates the pace of life. Beyond the town, geysers hiss and breathe like sleeping giants. The El Tatio field wakes early, before the sun, before the birds, before the world. Steam rises into sub-zero air, catching morning light in silver ribbons. It smells of minerals and ancient water. It sounds like the earth exhaling. And always, the silence. Not absence, but fullness. A silence that holds stories older than memory. A silence that listens back. As the road continues south, you pass through the Elqui Valley, a place where starlight and spirit intermingle. Vineyards stretch along the hills in neat green rows, feeding not just grapes, but dreams. Pisco is born here, but so is wonder. Telescopes rise from hilltops like white altars to the cosmos. And at night, when the sky opens again, it feels less like looking up and more like being held. Chile is not a country you cross. It is one you descend into, layer by layer, like memory, like breath. The road twists further south, following the spine of the Andes like a whispered secret. Mountains rise and fall, drawing shadow and light in long, graceful strokes. Somewhere between the altitude and the silence, you forget where you came from. Only the present remains, vast, unmapped, and alive. Central Chile opens like a hand. Here lie the vineyards of the Maipo Valley, spreading in gentle waves beneath the sky softened by Pacific winds. The air smells of grapes, and earth warmed by the sun. Vines reach toward the horizon in tidy rows, like music written across the land. In the distance, the Andes watch in silence, their peaks etched in permanent white. Santiago pulses in this valley's heart, a city of glass and grit, towers and tenderness. It hums with energy, but breathes with patience. Markets bloom with color, mangoes piled beside avocados, spices in cloth sacks, the shout of vendors offering empanadas hot from the oven. You wander past murals that bloom like wildflowers across old brick walls. The past and future coexist here, not as rivals, but as neighbors who've learned to share the street. Step inside a city park, and the noise dissolves. Children's laughter echoes between jacaranda trees. Water trickles from stone fountains. Lovers sit in silence, fingers barely touching. In Santiago, pause is not a break, it's a way of being. Then the coast calls. Valparaiso is a poem written in colors that don't match. Houses cling to the hills in blues and oranges, pinks and yellows, connected by stairways and stories. Streetcars rattle up the slopes. Sea spray paints the air. Artists leave their names in murals that speak louder than signs. The city breathes through texture, chipped paint, tiled steps, rusted rails. And in every imperfection, something beautiful emerges. The Pacific waits below, vast and silver, always in motion. Boats bob like toys on its skin. Sea lions bark in the harbors. Fishermen laugh with mouths full of salt. And when you sit beside the sea at dusk, watching the horizon blur, you realize Chile never shouts. It just continues. Vast, vertical, and endlessly alive. South of Valparaiso, the land begins to change. The hills soften, trees appear in greater number. The light grows cooler, touched by mist. Chile's long descent continues, and the journey enters a quieter rhythm. You arrive in the Lakes District, a region of forests and reflections, of mirror-like waters and snow-dusted volcanoes. Villages built by German settlers sleep beside clear lakes. Their homes carry alpine roofs, but the air smells of eucalyptus and ash. Here, the sky is not a canvas, but a mirror, always echoing what lies below. In the town of Puerto Varas, the twin cones of Osorno and Calbuco rise like guardians of time. On windless mornings, their reflections sit perfectly still in the waters of Lake Lanquihue. Fishermen cast lines with the same motions as their fathers. Wooden docks creak beneath the weight of memory. The wind hums through the reeds in low, meditative tones. Rain comes often, but it is never unwelcome. It does not drench, it embraces. Drops fall gently on moss-covered roofs, down the necks of ferns, into the quiet soil. Everything here seems to breathe in rhythm with the water. A drive through this land is like flipping through an old book, each page a scene both new and familiar. Wooden churches with spires that pierce fog, black-necked swans drifting across silver lakes, smoke rising from chimneys as if to salute the sky. And then a shift. South of Chiloé, the road disappears. The land breaks apart into islands and fjords. You enter Patagonia, not with wheels, but with will. Boats replace buses, silence replaces maps, and everything becomes slower, wilder, truer. The forest grows thicker, trees bend under the weight of time, waterfalls leap without warning from cliffs, roads become ribbons of gravel, weaving between lakes the color of forgotten dreams. And always, behind it all, the whisper of mountains, higher now, older now, closer now. This is not scenery, it is presence, and it watches you as much as you watch it. Patagonia begins not with drama, but with pause, with a breath held between mountain and sky. The silence here is thick, almost touchable. It coats the landscape like frost, delicate but persistent. You walk not to get somewhere, but to listen. And in that stillness, the land begins to speak. You move through forests of lenga and nira, their twisted trunks scarred by wind and fire. Moss hangs like memory from every branch. The air is sharp, clean, and carries no scent, only the crisp essence of distance. Condors trace circles high above, wings outstretched, unbothered by gravity or time. You hear the call of a distant guanaco, the splash of glacial melt in hidden streams. Then, the towers. In Torres del Paine, stone spires rise like cathedral walls, jagged and unreachable. Below them, turquoise lakes curl around cliffs, their surfaces ruffled only by the wind. Glaciers creak in the distance, groaning under their own weight, carving paths through the bones of the earth. You stand on trails where the sky feels closer than the ground. Here, the scale of things changes. You are no longer the traveler, you are the guest. In the evenings, the wind howls across the steppe like a memory trying to find its way home. Shadows stretch long across the grass. Herds of guanacos move in synchronized silence. A fox pauses to watch you, its eyes like polished amber. The land doesn't ask you to understand it, only to respect it. Further south, near the end of the world, the landscape turns elemental. At the southern tip, in Puerto Williams and Cape Horn, trees grow sideways in protest against the wind. Waves crash against black rock like 1,000 drumbeats. And above it all, the sky turns fierce, not in anger, but in majesty. There is a clarity here, born from extremity. the kind of clarity that strips away noise, that leaves only what matters: air, stone, water, light. And in that clarity, Chile offers its final lesson, not in words, but in presence. That beauty is not always found in comfort, that silence is not absence, and that the furthest places on earth often bring us closest to ourselves. From the southern edges of the continent, the journey turns west, far west, over the Pacific, toward a speck of land that defies geography. Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, rises from the sea like a thought made solid. It is not just far, it is alone, and yet the island feels complete. Its coasts are rough, where waves break endlessly against volcanic cliffs, but inland, the hills roll gently, covered in soft grasses and silence. Horses roam free, their manes lifted by the wind. And across the land, like sentinels carved from memory, stand the moai. Stone figures with long faces and closed eyes. Some stare inland, others have fallen, half buried in earth. All are quiet. Their silence is not empty, it hums with questions. Who carved them? Why do they watch? What did they once hear in the wind? You walk among them, not as a visitor, but as a question. The land does not answer. It invites you to wonder. Even the sky here seems slower. Clouds drift without urgency. The stars, when they come, are so clear they feel close enough to touch. You sit beneath them, the ocean whispering behind you, and time folds in strange directions. It's easy to believe that history here never ended. It just stepped aside and let the sky continue the story. Life on Rapa Nui moves with reverence. Families gather in the cool shade of trees. Fishermen return with quiet pride. Children run across fields where ancestors once danced. Everything breathes together: stone, sea, sky. And then, departure. You board the plane with red dust on your shoes and salt in your hair. Rapa Nui fades into ocean, into cloud, into memory. But it does not vanish, it stays with you. Not as a place, but as a presence. A reminder that some distances are worth crossing, that isolation can hold profound connection, that silence, when respected, speaks the loudest. Returning to the mainland feels like surfacing from a dream. But Chile still has more to say, not in its landscapes now, but in its people. The final layer of discovery lives not in mountains or oceans, but in the quiet rituals of everyday life. You find it in a morning market in Temuco, where Mapuche elders sell herbs and woven baskets, their hands moving with the rhythm of centuries. You hear it in the lilt of their language, Mapudungun, carry through the air like smoke. Here, culture is not display, it is breath. The stories told are not written, they are lived, again and again. You see it in the kitchens of Santiago, where grandmothers stir cazuela with slow reverence. In street corners where young musicians sing into microphones plugged into car batteries. In the laughter shared between strangers waiting for the bus. Chile does not perform its soul. It reveals it, quietly, gently, without insistence. In the far north again, you find the Altiplano, a mirror of where it all began. But now you carry more with you. The sights, yes, the sounds, but more than that, the rhythm, a slowness, a sense of scale, a deeper kind of seeing. You sit beside a salt lake under a violet dusk. Flamingos drift across the water like brushstrokes. The sky darkens without rush, and for a long moment, you simply breathe. This was never a trip. It was a descent into verticality, into presence, into something quieter than thought and deeper than beauty. This was Chile. Not explained, not captured, but experienced. Some places announce themselves in color, others in sound. But Chile begins with contrast, with silence and fire, ice and salt, peaks that scrape the heavens and valleys that fall into silence. It is a country not drawn in straight lines, but carved by time and tension, stretched like a long breath between the Atacama and Antarctica. To see Chile is to feel the world unfold vertically, from the driest desert on earth to fjords that whisper in tongues older than language. In the beginning, you don't hear the country, you feel it. You feel it in the pressure of altitude, as you stand in the shadow of the Andes, watching condors drift like fragments of forgotten stories. You feel it in the way light bends across the Salar de Atacama, not bouncing, but breaking, as if refracted through ancient silence. You feel it in the cold wind that races across the high plateaus, where flamingos stand in mineral lakes, still as statues, pink against the bones of salt and dust. This is a narrated discovery, a cinematic journey through the soul of a country. One voice, one rhythm, one path into the quiet spaces where Chile reveals itself, not with spectacle, but with stillness. Let us take you from north to south, not just through places, but through moments, through breath. The first of those moments lives in the north, in the Atacama Desert, where the sky is so clear it feels less like an atmosphere and more like a window. Astronomers come here to listen to the stars, but the land listens too, to ancient winds, to the deep sigh of cracked earth, to the shifting silence of dunes that have never heard rain. Valleys named for the moon and death bear no cruelty, only beauty too quiet to shout. Even movement feels sacred, a lone vicuña crossing an empty plain, a gust of wind stirring fine sand into ghost-like spirals, the crunch of footsteps where no footsteps should be. The air tastes of minerals and sun. The shadows move differently here, slower, longer, almost thoughtful. And when night falls, it is not dark. The desert becomes a bowl of stars, infinite, unreachable, yet somehow intimate. You don't look at them, you fall into them.